Yeah, one of the other benefits of vibranium is that it's really a great mood stabilizer.
Right.
You know,
Right. Prozac got you down? Try vibranium. Hail, Internet! It's Paul. It's Matt. The Dork Lords. We are here talking about What If? Season 1, Episode 2. What if T'Challa became a Starlord?
that's such an interesting phrasing there because, a Starlord.
Right,
It's
right.
not like that's how Peter Quill announces himself. I am a Starlord.
It occurred to me that they might be referencing the fact that in this multiverse there is no definitive Starlord, perhaps. So a Starlord, I don't know, but you're right. The fact that it has a Starlord is interesting. We open with Starlord on Morag trying to get Infinity Stone, much like we saw in the Guardians of the Galaxy. Obviously, when the mask is revealed, it's T'Challa, and we end with Peter Quill, not Starlord in this particular reality, as an adult, sweeping up at the Dairy Queen in Missouri that we saw referenced in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I believe.
Yes.
And Ego comes down and basically makes him an offer. Hey, son, kind of thing. And that's where we end off. So yes, what this episode shows us is that T'Challa makes a much better Star-Lord than Peter Quill. Peter Quill was terrible at his job, apparently. The universe is so much better just because of one change. We just put T'Challa in there. I mean, basically, I'm half joking, but all you gotta do is just point to one thing,
Yeah.
and there's many, but one thing in particular, T'Challa talked Thanos out of the snap.
Yes.
I mean, he talked Thanos out of the. I mean, what?
Yes.
He basically we don't need Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
All I had to do was have a chat, and we're done. In fact, I convinced him so much he's joined the group I'm in. He's a part of the Ravagers. What? That's just gigantic change. That means Thanos isn't going after the Infinity Stones. We see Drax. Drax is his family's alive, and so he doesn't have this need for revenge.
No, he
and
doesn't.
he's kind of seemed like a happy, somewhat well-adjusted bartender.
Yep.
We see Nebula. Nebula's not been, disassembled for parts or whatever. She's not a robot, which also implies that maybe she's not in competition with Gamora. And since we didn't see Gamora in this, anyway, it seems like she's better off than she was in the what we consider the actual timeline. And there's a whole lot of ways it's better off. Plus, the Ravagers are do-gooders, right? So. They've been, as they put it, the Robin Leaches of the galaxy.
Yeah. The only downside that I can think of is the potential, for Peter Quill to, become destroyed by his father, Ego. But it's hard to think of. Oh, and we don't know the circumstances under which the Collector received Captain America's shield and Mjolnir. Yeah.
Right. So in that version, perhaps our Avengers met some kind of an untimely end. But as you put it, we talked about this a little bit earlier, it doesn't necessarily mean they died.
No.
Their items have been acquired by the Collector, who collects things.
Certainly we know in the timeline that we're familiar with that Thor, Mjolnir was destroyed, and then he got, his second axe.
Right.
So that didn't necessarily mean something bad for Thor, although I guess it suggests maybe he just either doesn't know that it's there or decided,
I noticed the Collector didn't pick it up.
Yes.
Exactly. So what happens is the Ravagers are sent to pick up Ego's kid. They are distracted by the fact that the meteorite that hit the vibranium meteorite that hit Wakanda. They assume that's where Ego's son is, and because it wasn't Yondu that went down, instead it was his buddies, Taserface.
Yes.
And so they pick up T'Challa instead of Peter Quill.
Now, one thing, though, that just occurred to me as we were saying this is that it's my understanding that it wasn't just... I guess I got to rewatch Guardians now, because I can't remember if they were only responsible for taking Peter Quill or the other children as well that turned out not to be.
I think they were taking the other children as well.
Right.
Because I seem to remember a quote from Yondu where he was like, oh, that guy's a jerk, and I got the feeling he'd been doing multiple missions for Ego.
Right, so he just decided to stop. Nothing bad would happen from that.
I got to give major props to somebody on the writing team. Maybe this is from the comics. I don't know. Figured this out, but awesome little name thing here. So T'Challa's ship isn't the Milano.
Oh,
he
yes.
Didn't really have that.
Yeah. It's the Mandela.
It's the Mandela, which obviously would have major implications for someone from Wakanda, but also the Mandela effect.
Oh,
basically
yes.
sums up the show, right?
Yes,
it's like it's a false memory that assumes that there's another reality in which that thing happened. And so it's like it's exactly what this show is. I mean, it's like, mwah, yeah, you earn your paycheck, somebody. The episode centers around the fact that Nebula, she comes to the Ravagers with a plan. She's trying to get this thing called the Embers of Genesis from the Collector. We learn that in the vacuum that Thanos' absence has created, the Collector has kind of stepped in as like a big bad. Maybe not of Thanos level, but he's a boss, a boss villain to be overcome. And so they're trying to go in and get this particular item from him, and it becomes like a heist type thing. Basically, the Ravagers figure this out. There's a apparent double cross, triple cross, but it's all part of the big plan. And the plan works out. And they eventually lead the Collector to his collections. He's imprisoned and his collections are approaching him. Although we talked about something, we'll talk about in a second, but did everybody die there? Anyway, so an episode that I really enjoyed, and I enjoyed all the alternate timeline stuff. I like the fact that Thanos is kind of half-jokingly keeps talking about his plan. Like, that's genocide. He's like, ah! But I like that notion that he's still in his head, but he's been convinced. No, we got other ways to do this.
Suggest that perhaps Cliff Clavin on Cheers, it would have been a terrible thing to give him power because.
Right. We also know that obviously Chadwick Boseman gave voice to T'Challa, and they give a nice little moving tribute to him at the end.
Yes, they do.
Very fitting. But we've learned apparently that he is voicing 4 episodes. So we assume that Starlord's coming back.
Right.
I say T'Challa as Starlord is coming back, somewhere else in probably this season. Which brings up your point about Peter Quill. Maybe in this universe, if this continues, if we see the narrative of this particular timeline continue, we might see that maybe Peter Quill becomes an antagonist, partially because he doesn't have the Guardians of the Galaxy experience. Like he was kind of a jerk who then found family, and he had that experience with Yondu that started pretty badly, but ended up being a positive thing, I think. But all that, he didn't have it. And so instead, all he's got as his mentor is Ego. Maybe we see because he's also got powers. Obviously, he doesn't know them, but he's got them. So maybe we see kind of an antagonist form of Peter Quill show up in this timeline.
Yeah, I guess that's possible. They have to fill in the gap, I guess, on what happened between the death of his mother and where we see him. I don't know. That's another one that requires rewatching because initially, I think Ego made him an offer, sort of like join me, and he was like, when he said no, then he became the battery.
Correct. Was his original point to be a battery? I've forgotten as well. Maybe in the comments you guys can tell us, what was the intent of Ego bringing Peter to the planet? Was it to join me as father and son and we shall rule the galaxy? Or was it like, I got another battery, great. I think it was a join me as father and son kind of thing, but anyway. Because they're playing catch and all that. Anyway, okay.
Right. And then he reveals to him that he killed his mother, which makes him angry. And then he's like, well, I thought we were going to be,
Let me add you to the pile of skulls. Yeah. The other thought that occurred to me is I think we do see either in a trailer or an image. I think we see Gamora in the What If series somewhere.
Huh.
Yeah,
I think we've seen her as an Avenger, I think. Or like the Avengers in the Battle of New York, where they're all poised around. I think that's where we saw, not necessarily in New York, but they were all sort of staged around, I think.
Okay. Because I had a theory that perhaps the way she gets introduced is because there's not a Guardians of the Galaxy at this point, that she is working for Ego. And so that when Peter Quill comes to with Ego, like Mantis and Gamora, and that's how they meet up, and whatever. But
I guess that's certainly possible. She doesn't have the same powers to quell his mind.
Good point. Anyway, I don't know. Just a thought. I would say the one point of this very enjoyable episode that I was a little underwhelmed by was how quickly T'Challa forgives Yondu for kidnapping him. Right. So what we did in storyline terms is they took the wrong guy, took the wrong kid. I would say T'Challa's probably roughly 10 years old, something like that. He's not a teenager for sure.
No, he's not a teenager.
So they kidnap him, thinking they're bringing him to Ego, realize they had made a mistake, and then instead of returning him and going to find the right guy, they just keep him and they tell him, "Oh yeah, no, your world was destroyed. Wakanda's gone. I assume that means, and your parents died. There's nothing for you back there. Stay with us." And so that was 20 years. It's 20. T'Challa finds out accidentally while going on this heist.
Yes.
One of the things the Collector's collected is a Wakandan spaceship, which he accidentally activates, and he gets his message from his dad. He can see that his dad's been looking for him all this time, and so he, justifiably comes to Yondu like, "What the hell?" And Yondu, I was waiting for a really good excuse, and I was trying to think.
You
how
think
would
there
you
is
frame
one?
This? Well, for instance, maybe you could say something like, "Look, we were worried for your health and your family, and we knew that Ego would never stop." I don't know. You could try to frame it for your own safety.
Ego would never stop, even though he doesn't. He's looking for Peter Quill and not T'Challa.
I'm not saying. I'm saying that's not true.
Yeah. Okay.
but Yondu's response is, "Hey, you were an explorer. We just did you a favor." You're like, the kid. He was a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I'm like, anyway.
He got mad. He left.
He did get mad.
Got into a battle that Yondu helped him win, and then everything was fine.
Everything was fine. Introduce him to his family. Hey, this is all great.
But
this
bygones
is the guy who
be
kidnapped
bygones. Yeah.
I mean, just think of the years of despair and worry and probably PTSD that his parents had of losing their son. Just he's gone. It's kind of just wiped under. It's fine. Yeah. All right. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's so one of the. I get it.
One of the other
one
of the other benefits of vibranium is that it's really a great mood stabilizer.
Right. Right. Prozac got you down. Try vibranium. Yeah, we end that part of the story, at least with T'Challa, that they're back in Wakanda. He's reunited with his family, but Yondu's still there, as well as Thanos and everybody. And I got the sense that he's going to make the decision to be like, "Hey, now that we're back and everybody's cool, can I go exploring more?" And I think he's going to leave with the group, but maybe I'm wrong. What did you get out of where did you think? That
seems like the most likely thing. But if Wakanda has their own Space Force, I don't see why he couldn't work with them. What is their mission?
He's not home. He's not earthbound. In other words, yeah.
Right. And why would the Collector, be interested in a Wakandan spaceship? Well,
not only that, the part that was really odd to me is he's got Dora Milaje mannequins.
Yes.
Wait, what does that mean?
Yeah.
He killed the crew. He didn't imprison them. He could have collected them, but I guess he didn't. And instead he took their outfits and he's like, you know what? I want it in context. So let's make some mannequins. Like, what? He's committed to the old collecting thing. I was like,
yes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, but where I was thinking though is like, what is their mission? What are the Wakandans doing other than, and perhaps that's only it, but I would think that there would be other things they would be attempting to do.
I got you. In other words, did they invent space travel to look for T'Challa? Probably not, right? They'd already had a space program, and they were using it at least partially to look for T'Challa. But
our satellites that we've created that have all this media and history that we've created over time. Like, okay, if anybody ever finds this, but it's not like, let's build a satellite so we can send our media over if anybody ever finds it. It's like, it sends information back to the Earth that we look at.
Mission accomplished, we're done.
But, but also it accomplishes other things.
A Blu-ray and a Betamax. I think we're fine. How involved is Wakanda maybe in the galactic politics or something?
Yeah.
Something of note is, so they do get these embers of Genesis. We see that the what are they called? The Black Order. They no longer work for Thanos because Thanos is ship tapped out. Yeah. So they're working for the Collector. And
they're like, excuse me, we still like doing bad things.
Yeah, right. In this universe where everyone else, got like just a happy makeover from T'Challa, not the Black Order.
Yeah, no, whoa, come on. Now you're not so cool.
Yeah,
Thanos
must find other evil guy. Fine, Collector. So they're working for him. There's a big fight going on, and to win the fight, Nebula throws some of the embers of Genesis into like the Black Order's mouth or something.
Yes.
And so the whole area, it's nowhere, it's the head of that dead Celestial, just starts sprouting life.
Yes.
And it kind of reminded me a lot of Star Trek 2, right? The Genesis Project.
Yes.
But notably, in that movie, they're in their version of what Genesis does is it kills everything else.
Yes.
And then grows new life.
Yes.
And so you kind of get the idea that's what's happening here too. That there's a giant spaceport and a city basically on nowhere, and it's dead now. Like you mentioned, all the people, all the Howard the Duck, and all those people. Like, are they all in real trouble right now? But anyway, that's the implication anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if it's like in Wrath of Khan, then it would destroy in order to create. But if it's just growing out of stuff, maybe you're just stuck there in the forest.
Yeah.
Just don't put it in your mouth, but it's okay on the ground.
Right. Right. Something that would be very cool, which probably won't happen. I'll say that. But
okay.
If it did, I'd be like, oh, pretty cool. If this Genesis project revitalized the Celestial that was the head of nowhere, right? So I don't know if somewhere in the comics is there like a Galactus that's a Swamp Thing, like Swamp Thing Galactus. You just have this giant Swamp Thing going around the galaxy. That would be pretty sweet. Anyway, so that's it. There you go. When you see that at the end of the last episode of What If, you'll know. It came back here. I predicted it.
Initially I thought it was I couldn't imagine that happening. But for an ego to become a head as a planet.
Right.
I'm just saying, guess it's not the craziest thing in the world.
It's also just of all the items they could have chosen to like acquire, it was this thing that grants life and amazing abilities, and then they put it in this dead head. It just there's a
there were just bits. There was a little plant thing in there, and this little particles came out. So I think Nebula still had her.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they still have a dosage of it, which I also got the idea that at least that's one of the ways that T'Challa convinced Thanos he didn't need to do the snap. Was like, I think he said something like there are alternatives. This is perhaps one of those alternatives. Hey, you can grow all, like food on planets, you can end starvation, blah, 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 blah. So I think that this is part of that. We don't need to snap the fingers and destroy half of the universe.
Sure.
We've got these seeds. We talked about the Collector having Cap, Shield, and Mjolnir. He also has Hela's headgear. You brought up the good point, because I thought it just meant that he had defeated all of these folks and hence got their items. But your point was, well, he's a collector, so he maybe just paid someone to get the items. So maybe it's as simple as somehow those items were acquired. It doesn't mean definitively that the collector killed, say, Hela.
Or Thor, or
Captain
America. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see how they combine all these up, I guess. If they combine all of them up. Obviously, some of them will be standalone, and perhaps we'll see explorations of episodes that aren't involved in the sort of main storyline this season be exploited in season 2 or season 3, if they ever come up with that. I imagine this is actually probably a long one, since this could be a long-running series, since it doesn't have to have any particular one character that's it's devoted to.
Yeah, and as we say, apparently we do have 3 more episodes in which Chadwick Boseman voiced T'Challa, so we feel like, assuming it's the same T'Challa, that we will be at least returning to this version of T'Challa Starlord. So yeah, I agreed. I'm interested to see too. It sounds like almost too big a task to try to make sense of every difference in all of these stories and to combine them. Like, I think it might create a giant mess if that's the case. So, but we'll see. We'll just see how this all works out. I think the next episode supposedly involves Loki. Is that?
I think you're right. That's what yes, I agree that that's
rumor mill.
Yes, exactly.
So looking forward to that, and we'll be back talking about What If episode 3. Thank you so much, as always, Paul. Appreciate it, sir.
Certainly.
And bye, everybody.
Bye.